What's up, everybody? Welcome to week 1 of our Prep to Hunt series, and this is our gear and equipment section, and this is part 1 of 3 this week, where we're going to be talking about all the gear and equipment that you need to be looking for when you're getting ready to go hunt. So in our gear and equipment section, we're going to be talking about shooter support gear today. And we're going to break down a little bit more of this gear as we go deeper into some of the other segments, as we focus more on things like rangefinders, binoculars, and stuff like that. But before we get started in marksmanship, we got to get you guys on the right path when it comes to your shooter support gear. And this is why we're talking about it right up front. So when we're looking at shooter support gear, there's really 3 things that we have to be able to do in the field while we're hunting. We have to be able to find the target, we have to be able to range the target, and then we have to be able to shoot the target. So all 3 of those things, this is all that shooter support gear that's going to let that happen. So let's jump in and start talking about our first item, and that's going to be our backpack. This backpack that you see here, we're going to go into more detail on this when we get into our pack section of our gear and equipment series. And this pack right here is a Stone Glacier Kiowa 3200. And this is going to be more of a day pack at 3,200 cubic inches. If you're doing any type of extended hunt, maybe if you're doing a backpack trip or something like that, this pack is not going to be ideal. This pack really would be okay for a lightweight scouting trip, maybe an overnighter in the summertime where you don't have to take a lot of clothing and a lot of heavy sleeping materials to keep yourself warm. But the backpack is really important, and the reason the backpack is important is it's going to give you the ability to build a more solid shooting position by filling in negative space. And that's something that if you guys have watched our positional shooting course online in our masterclass, Philip talks about filling in negative space, and that's a great thing for a backpack to do. We can stuff a backpack underneath us if we need some more support in our shooting position for our upper body. We can lean up against it on a tree or something to that effect to give us more support and stability. All right, so the next piece of shooter support gear, aside from the backpack, is really, really important, and that is a rear bag. And this rear bag right here is made by Reeser Precision, and it's sold by Armageddon Gear, and this happens to be the pint size Game Changer. It's made from waxed canvas, and I've got Get Light fill in here. And the reason that I got Get Light fill in here is with that fill in this small bag, it only weighs 6 ounces. And for me, as a backcountry hunter and somebody who has really a lot of experience in different types of shooting scenarios and conditions, having a rear bag at your disposal is an unbelievable advantage. This rear bag obviously works to support the rear of the rifle, but it will also work by throwing it on an object and then using it as a buffer for hard to soft contact between your rifle and whatever support it is. This thing goes with me everywhere, and a lot of people would look at me and say, "You're crazy. Why would you take that when you can substitute maybe like a puffy in a stuff sack or a wadded up jacket or something to that effect?" And honestly, when the time comes and it's real and it's go time, the chances of you being successful by digging in your pack to come up with a jacket or a wadded up puffy to make that shooting position work, it's just not really that practical. This bag is so light, it doesn't weigh hardly anything, and what I've been doing lately is putting it on the bottom of my binocular harness using a bungee cord, so that way it's always there and I always have it when I need it and I've actually made some pretty tricky shots. And the reason that I was able to make those pretty tricky shots is because I had a rear bag. So Get Light Fill, pint-sized game changer, wax canvas from Armageddon Gear. Another thing that's really important for us out in the field as a piece of support for our rifle is a tripod. Tripods are probably one of the single most important pieces of gear that you can have in the shooter support realm, not only for shooter support, but also for glassing and hunting out west. The tripod is really probably one of the only pieces of shooter support gear that you can take with you that will guarantee that you can build a shooting position no matter where you go, what terrain you're in, or what conditions that you're in, provided that you actually trained with it. This is the Really Right Stuff Ascend, and we're gonna get a little bit deeper into some of the features of the Ascend when we get later on into the series. But having a tripod is almost, I would probably say, mission essential equipment for the Western backcountry hunter or even the Western day hunter. This is always on my pack. Wherever the rifle goes, this goes. Wherever the rifle goes, this goes as well. So really, really important stuff, a quality tripod. So let's talk about a piece of gear that should be organic to your rifle, and it's probably one of the most overlooked pieces of shooter support gear that we see out west. And it's starting to change a little bit, but it's a pair of bipods. And a pair of bipods on your rifle is probably, again, mission essential equipment, guys. You need to have a quality set of bipods on your rifle, because this is, again, the only way that you're gonna be guaranteed to build a solid shooting position. And you don't even have to use bipods in the prone. We're gonna get into other techniques and applications of how to use bipods that are outside of just using them from the prone position. So a good quality set of bipods is really important to have on your rifle. And it's one of those things that weight at that point in time is of no concern. This is the exact setup that I'm gonna use to hunt with this year, with the exception of I'm probably gonna slap a section of Archer rail on the bottom of the forend here, so that way I can directly clamp it into my tripod to have more sustainable shooting positions in the event that I gotta wait an animal out while it's laying down bedded and I'm waiting for it to stand up and move and give me an opportunity for a shot. So some other accessories for your bipod. This happens to be a Thunder Beast bipod, and these guys are leg extensions. And the way I carry these things, I'll do a little segment on this in the future for you guys as well. These guys are always with me. They're tucked into my vinyl harness, so that way I always have them in the event that I need them, and it'll take me maybe 15 seconds to swap out those feet to these longer legs to get a higher position. So again, sticking with building the actual shooting position to shoot from, we have a set of trekking poles here, and we have a set of Primos polecats. Now, the trekking pole, once I decided to commit to learning how to use a set of trekking poles to shoot from, I was blown away at the support and stability that they achieved. So what I do with my trekking poles, because I hike with trekking poles. Hiking with trekking poles is probably one of the most advantageous things that you can do for your endurance in the mountains. And it just gives you that edge to hike farther, longer, and a little bit faster, especially going up and down steep terrain. So what I do with my trekking poles, and we're gonna go into this at a later time, is I take the loops, loop them around the grips just like so. You see that? And then I crisscross those, and I can adjust the length of the legs utilizing the adjustments of the legs themselves or the height of the trekking poles. And now I have a saddle for my rifle to lay in, and it provides amazing support and stability. So a set of trekking poles is something that you should probably have in your kit. And we're gonna learn how to shoot off of them extensively in this Prep to Hunt series. So another piece of gear that I would strongly recommend you guys learning how to use, and it's basically a purpose-built set of trekking poles, and it's these Primos polecats. They used to be called Stony Point shooting sticks, and I think Primos bought them out, and now they're called polecats. And so again, these guys are just basically an extended, elevated bipod. And with practice, with a little bit of practice, you can get extremely proficient and very, very fast at throwing these polecats out and utilizing them as a rest. And you can adjust the length by doing some twist lock sections here, and you can pretty much get almost up to the standing position with these guys. So the guy who actually turned me onto these is Cody Carroll. If you guys follow us on our social media pages, you'll see Cody that does our Fieldcraft Fridays. When he went to Afghanistan as a sniper, he took nothing but these polecats, and there's a third leg section here that you can screw in to this piece of plastic, and it gives you the opportunity to now set these guys up as a tripod. And so Cody turned me on to these polecats, and I was blown away again at the support and stability, and they're extremely lightweight. So they are a huge benefit, and I would strongly recommend you guys grab a set. They're not very expensive, and they're highly advantageous. Okay, so another thing, the last thing, well, two more things we're going to talk about when it comes to building shooting positions. First, for your comfort, is a set of knee pads. I've got a pretty gnarly right knee from an old injury, and kneeling or low crawling or hands and knees crawling over rocks, boulder fields and things like that to try to get into a position to shoot, a set of knee pads is really almost mission essential for me. They're always in my truck or in my pack, and these guys are they weigh probably less than this bag right here. And these are Arc'teryx kneecaps, and they're only like 60 bucks. It's probably the cheapest thing you're ever gonna buy from Arc'teryx. So another thing that we're gonna talk about is magazines. I'm using a rifle that utilizes a detachable box magazine, and I've got a 10 round mag here. This is a Magpul PMag 10 AC, and I've chosen this magazine because it's light, it's made out of polymer. But the other magazine that you're gonna see me carry, especially for shooting rifle matches, is the 5 round version of the PMag, and that is the 5 AC. The reason I use the 5 AC is the 10 rounder, depending on what position I'm shooting from, it can get in the way of whatever support it is that I'm shooting off of. And instead of the rifle laying on the bag here, it's pivoting on the magazine. So you know, I'm kind of gaming this right now. This is more for like the NRL Hunter series. If you guys want to compete in that series, by the way, this is all the gear that I used in that series. I shot in a match last week. So the PMag 5 AC, great option. If you see a position where you're like, man, I don't think my magazine is going to clear that, just throw the 5 rounder in there and you'll get your clearance. Okay, so we talked about building shooting positions. Now we have to talk about establishing ranges so that way we can shoot at that target. So when we're talking about that type of shooter support gear, we need to talk about a quality set of binoculars. And a quality set of binoculars is, for a Western hunter, it is absolutely paramount, because we spend the vast majority of our time behind glass searching for animals and letting the glass in our eyes do the walking for us. And once we spot an animal, we make the decision, hey, how can I get there? Do I have enough time to get there? And then we make our decision and we make our run to try to have an opportunity for a shot at that animal. So a high quality pair of binoculars is really important. And the other thing that's very important is to make sure that you have a method of interfacing or supporting your binoculars on your tripod. I've got an Outdoorsman's stud on this pair of Swarovski EL ranges, and I've also got a piece that mounts on the Arca rail that this stud clips into, and it allows my binoculars to just sit there rock solid, and I can pan and scan all day long and have no fatigue, okay? So locating targets, then ranging targets. Both of these binoculars here, this is a set of Leica Geovids and obviously the Swarovski EL ranges, these have integrated laser rangefinders. Ever since I started using that pair of binoculars with integrated lasers, it's a game changer. Not having to go from a pair of binoculars to then grab a rangefinder, try to relocate the animal with the rangefinder, that is usually a recipe for disaster. Anybody that's ever been in that situation before has most likely lost an opportunity at a shot because they couldn't relocate the animal, or they couldn't relocate a reference point to get a range to the target. So if you have the financial means to do so, I strongly recommend getting a pair of integrated lasers into your binoculars. It's one piece of gear for two purposes. And that's really what we try to do anyways. But if you're not in that position, a handheld laser is going to be your next best, obviously your next best option. And this one right here as a budget, I haven't been more impressed by a handheld laser for the cost than this Nikon 4K Black. I picked one of these up not too long ago, and it went meter for meter, yard for yard, whatever unit of measure you want to use, out to 2,700. And I took that out with a set of my Leica Vectors. At 450 bucks, this thing is super, super hard to beat. And it's actually really crisp and clear glass, and it gives reliable ranges even in marginal conditions where maybe you got haze in the sky, or it's not great conditions for laser operation, but that 4K Black performs really well. Now, the Cadillac handheld rangefinder is going to be this Terrapin X. The Terrapin X is a 7-power magnifier, and I've taken this thing out to 2,500 yards and beyond. Now, I don't utilize this as a primary observation tool. Philip actually does. He likes using the Terrapin in the NRL Hunter series because it has 7 power and it's a little bit wider field of view, and it allows him to locate targets a little bit easier. I stick with my binos, but that's just something that Phil likes. But the Terrapin X, that's going to be your Cadillac laser rangefinder. So to carry all of this stuff, right, to get it all where we need to go, obviously we have a backpack, but over here I've got some binocular harnesses. There are tons of different binocular harnesses out there, and I can't even begin to scratch the surface of how many different companies make these things and the different features that they all have. But there's 2 of them that I gravitate to, and that is the FHF gear and the Stone Glacier. The FHF gear has a little bit more robust build for adding accessory pouches and things like that. And I've been rolling with the FHF gear harness simply because it has the modularity and it's a little bit more durable, and my binoculars slide in and out of it a lot easier than the Stone Glacier. Now, that's not to say that the Stone Glacier bino harness isn't awesome, because it is. That one's just a little bit too small. I need a larger size to fit these EO ranges. And so once I get that larger size, I'm going to transition to those. So you guys can see on my binocular harness here, I've got a pouch for my Kestrel on one side, and then I've got a pouch over here. This is FHF's gears. They call it the Tech pouch. And this is where I keep my magazine. My spare magazine fits in this pouch right here. This thing's designed to keep your cell phone warm or your batteries warm. It's got an integrated hand warmer pocket. So that way, when you're in extreme cold conditions, you can keep either your navigation equipment, your GPS, or phone batteries, or whatever type of electronics or tech that you have. It gives you the opportunity to keep them warm and prolong the longevity of the life of them. So, and this thing it's almost like a general purpose pouch. I can put all kinds of stuff in it. What I have been doing lately is what I tried out at this recent NRL Hunter match was utilizing just a tarp bungee and wrapping my Game Changer bag underneath the harness. And man, it works phenomenal. It's actually going to be probably one of the ways that I carry my Game Changer bag when I'm hunting in the field from here on out, unless I have to carry bear spray or a pistol for defense for either 2-legged or 4-legged critters. So that's the bino harness that I use. The last piece of shooter support gear is how do we get our dopes, or how do we get our data to put on the scope to hit the target at distance? That's the biggest deal, okay? So we can see a target, we can build a shooting position and get a rock solid sight picture, but if I don't have immediate access to my data to make that shot, then it's all for naught. So what I do is I handwrite my own data cards, and you guys can see this. We did another vlog series on this last year, and you guys can look that up on our YouTube channel on how to do that. But I use a handwritten dope card, and I will write that dope card for whatever environmental condition that I'm going to be hunting in. And this dope card went out to 1,000. I generally won't take my hunting dope cards out to 1,000. I'll take them out to about 800, because that's about as far as I'm comfortable shooting at an animal, unless the conditions are absolutely perfect. So the last piece of shooter support gear that I'll talk about, it's pretty valuable, because if you're anybody that's spent a long enough time in the mountains, it's a good idea to have a finger on the pulse of the weather. And a Kestrel is more than just a ballistic solver or a ballistic computer program. It's an anemometer, it's a weather station. It's going to give you all kinds of data: temperature, humidity, pressure, barometric pressure, dew point, wind speed, all of that stuff. This is super ruggedized, and if I have to take a long shot or I have to take a very technical shot and I don't want to rely on my phone, especially in the mountains if it ran out of batteries, this guy is super rugged, and it can take a lot more of a beating than your phone can. So my Kestrel is always with me where I go with my rifle in the event that I lose something or this thing gets lost, or who knows, right? We can what if everything to death, but the Kestrel is a great piece of gear to have, and it's almost mission essential for me. So there you have it, guys. We pretty much covered everything on the table for shooter support gear. Now, as you guys go through the program, I want you to try to figure out how you can acquire some of this stuff. Most of you guys probably have a lot of this gear already, but try to narrow down your equipment. Try to find the equipment and say, okay, I'm gonna stick with this piece of gear this week, and I'm gonna shoot or train or dry fire or whatever it is that you're gonna do to practice with that piece of equipment alone, so that way you can get more familiar with it. Because what we tend to see shooters do is they have all this equipment, but they never dedicate enough training time to be completely 100% familiar with that piece of equipment. And when the moment of truth comes and that adrenaline is pumping and that once in a lifetime opportunity is standing 500 some yards away from you, you need things to work, and you need to be able to have the confidence in yourself and the confidence in your equipment that you can make that shot and you're not going to be irresponsible. And the way that we do that is by training with our equipment, and that is the whole purpose of our Prep to Hunt series. So with that being said, guys, this is our week 1 gear and equipment, part 1, talking about shooter support gear. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them in the thread on the Mighty Network where this thing is posted. And if you guys are watching this as a vlog series on our YouTube channel, make sure that if you don't already know about our Prep to Hunt series, which you should by now, head over to moderndayRifleman.com, smash that registration button, get yourself into the course, because that's where you're gonna find all of our shooting drills, all of the detailed gear lists, and a bunch of other paid content that's gonna go into greater detail about how to use all this stuff. So with that being said, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, keep your face on the gun, and we'll see you next week.